I guess today is another day where we'll try some more conversation in the car. As time goes on, it seems like the only time that I really have to myself is my early mornings, and then the rest of the day I'm caught up doing a bunch of stuff. And it's not like my wife demands a lot of my time. It's not like any of my friends demand a lot of my time. It just turns out that I demand a lot of my time. I like to do stuff. I like to get out. I like to move. I realize that, just in the last, couple years, year and a half or so, I've lost about 10 pounds. And, I know I was talking all that mess about, going and working out all the time and getting healthy. And what I'm finding is that just by the virtue of getting up and doing something every day and moving and shaking, I'm starting to lose a little bit of weight, and I think I'm using that energy. So, more important than necessarily going to the gym sometimes. Sometimes it's just about the process, and I think sometimes we get so caught into just analyzing things because we feel like we know so much that we forget about the things that are sitting right in front of us. So all of that to say, I'm enjoying the mornings. I'm on my way to my gardener class. I've got about 15 more of these classes. This is class number 3. It's an 18-week class plus the final review or exam, and then I go from there. So, we'll see how it goes. But that's not what I wanted to talk to you about today. As some would say, I could talk about anything, but what I thought I would talk a little bit about today was just about what does that really look like when you go in and you talk to your financial advisor. And what made me think of this was I was talking to a buddy of mine yesterday. He hit me up, and it's funny because I'm starting to now become the de facto expert on all things retirement for my friends. I think I mentioned that I was asked to speak at an elementary school here in the next couple of months. Not elementary, I'm sorry, high school economics class. They're going to be talking about financial literacy, and so then I become, I guess, what they call the use case of somebody that just followed the steps and then got to financial independence. So I have that coming up, and I forgot how I got into that, but anyhow, I've got a bunch of stuff happening. So anyway, the thing I want to talk to you about today is I had a buddy of mine that came, because I'm all things retirement to most of the people I know. So I had a friend of mine yesterday. I was at the driving range, and he asked me, he said, number one, he gave me an incredible compliment. He told me that he started walking and he was motivated by me because he knows that I go walking once a week with my older buddy and that I've been doing some walking, so I was motivated. So I took that because he's somebody that I have some respect for. I take that as an incredible compliment. But the other thing he asked me that I thought was even more interesting was he asked me, Sabado, what did your financial advisor tell you was the number that you needed when you started having the conversations to retire? And I said to him, well, let me tell you how that question unfolded. So he asked me that question, and I said to him, I said, well, that's really going to depend, because you could be a millionaire with a lot of debt, and you could be a thousandaire with, not as much debt and lower expenses. So it's really going to come to your expense ratio. He says, that's exactly what my financial advisor told me. And so I told him that the reason that your financial advisor told you that is because there's so many factors that are involved in how your financial health is doing. Whether it's, how much debt you have, your car payments, your house payments, you're helping your kids through life or through school, or are you going to life or going to school or doing something? So anybody that tells you and tries to satisfy your need for a binary answer with how much money do you need in retirement. That's just not going to work. This guy, I think I mentioned before, he used to play professional baseball, and so we were talking about a friend of his who was making a bunch of money, but then a deal didn't go the way that he wanted it to go. Guess what happens? Now he's on the other side of that, not doing as well. And it's not that he's a bad guy or this guy's a bad dude, but things happen. So it's easy to kind of think that when people have a little bit of money, that they're going to be better off in terms of their life, their situations, their circumstances. But that's just not always the case. It takes more than just having X amount of dollars in the bank, because you can have X amount of dollars in the bank, but it's not about what you have necessarily. It's about what you owe. If you owe more than you make, or you owe more than you have, or you owe more than if you went liquid that you would that you'd be able to pay off, then that's going to have an impact, because you're not going to be able to pay. You should be able, at any given time, when you look at net worth or net wealth or whatever the operative term is you want to use, no matter how you slice it, the idea is if you were to take your wealth and you were to liquidate everything you had, you want to make sure that you have it where you always want to come out on top of that. You always want to have more liquid than you do cash, otherwise you're in debt. And so you hear people talk about their net worth. They talk about salaries, but they go out and they drive these really expensive cars. Well, that's cool. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with driving an expensive car. But the fact is that takes away from what it is that you own. So there's what you owe and there's what you own. So, yeah. So I thought that was a pretty interesting tidbit of information. So, be smart about your planning. Just because you see somebody else retiring, as I told him, and as I've mentioned to you before, is that retirement is really just a phase of life and part of the process. But the key is having the control of your own life and your own time. And so, don't endeavor to retire. Endeavor to control your time, because it's never my expectation that you're going to retire early. Not everybody makes it to that step, and not everybody's set up for that situation. But I do have the expectation that we all live our best lives, and that's what I try to do. And some of us will have more control of our time than others. Some of us probably can exercise more control than we actually do, because we allow others to control it. But it's really about controlling your time. So, think about some of the things that you want to do. As I always say, and again, I'll start saying this a little bit more, is what would you do if you won the lottery? If you won the lottery, what would you do with your time? And those are probably the things you need to endeavor to do now. I asked that question on another video, and somebody asked me or told me that they'd spend more time with their kids and their grandkids and their family. And so to me, that sounded less of sound like an aspiration and really more like a goal, because there's really no reason that you shouldn't spend the time doing some of those things, and at least in some fashion that you want to do. But think about, ask yourself the question: what is it that you would do if you won the lottery? If you won the lottery, would you go big and do a bunch of stuff? And the reality is you might go out and buy a couple of things, out of the gate, but then longer term, once you settle into the being rich, then being rich isn't a thing. Just like being retired isn't a thing. Just like having a job isn't a thing, because the first time you got this job, you were excited about the job. I know you were, because we all were, but we're not that excited anymore. I mean, let me know how you feel about your job. Let me know if you would stay at your job if you won the lottery. Some people would, and I think sometimes people say they would because, again, it becomes another mechanism for them to convince us that they love their job. So, you could tell me that, but I tend to believe what I see, and I just don't see that around the world. But, we'll see. We'll check it out, player. But, hey, I know the last one that I had for you, or one of the last few of them was fairly long. It was at about 40 minutes. So I think I'm going to cut this one a little bit short, but I want to give you that information because I know a lot of us ask ourselves, what do we need for retirement? And ultimately, what we need and what we need, or what we think we need and what we need, are two different things. And it's not about the number. It's about your expenses. Manage your expenses, you put yourself in a better spot. You don't manage your expenses, then no matter how much money you make, you're gonna be broke, baby. But anyway, it's your main man Sabado signing out. Have a good rest of your day. If you like this or anything on the channel, please feel free to subscribe and share with your friends, because it's as I look around YouTube, I don't see as many people that aren't financial advisors really just telling their story. And the diversity of the group of people doing that number gets even smaller. And so, the more people that we have telling our story on YouTube, the better off future generations are going to be, because they're going to have more information to make some of the best decisions. And some of this information that you're getting here is information that people didn't get growing up. Some of you didn't get growing up. So we have an obligation to pay it forward. That's what we do on the channel. So subscribe, share, all those good things. And but anyway, what we're doing is we have a movement. We're making lives better. And eventually, we'll all get to where it is we want to be. So on that note, have a good rest of your day, and I will talk to you soon.